I'm working with a team of people that fundamentally disagree with what I'm saying. As part of my role is to challenge thinking. You've just got to take it.
Hello everybody. Hello Claire.
Hi. Hi.
It's really great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Claire Posaner, your expertise is human resources, change, organisation development, bit of coaching.
A little bit of coaching here and there.
25 years of experience working for both the UK and international businesses.
Yes, that's right.
Anything you would like to add?
I've had an amazing career, actually. I think in that 25 years, it makes me feel really old. Really old, 25 years. Gosh, it feels like yesterday that I was some little recruiter, a little corporate recruiter. But no, I have had a brilliant career. And I think I know we're going to talk about it today, what I've been so lucky in the last 10 years to be able to do is focus on things that I'm really passionate about, you know, around that whole change, culture, leadership, you know, how people behave in organisations, how people's behaviours really helps to grow and drive organisations and make organisations successful. So, no, I consider myself to be really lucky. So I'm looking forward to having the conversation.
That's amazing to hear. So I wanted to start with asking you a really important question.
Sure.
What inspires you on a daily basis?
I knew you were going to hit me with a really heavy question, really big question to start this off. What inspires me? This probably going to sound really trite, but because of the sort of work that I do, I work with a lot of people, with a lot of different personalities, with a lot of people who have different agendas. You know, the whole diversity of human beings, I think, is just fantastic for me. And you never quite know what's going to happen, especially when I'm coaching or when I'm facilitating events, because you're trying to bring people out of themselves to talk and to share their thinking and to share ideas. And you have to be quite brave sometimes to let people come forward with you know, their ideas and their thoughts. So that's what lights my fire.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that, because I was going to say that I'm very inspired by people.
Oh right.
By women.
There you go. See, that's why we get
and
on.
I've got a little gift for you actually. I just came from Uganda, as you know, where I worked with 22 Stars Foundation, and I decided to promote that a little bit. I'm going to post a link below. And so for you, I brought a couple of bracelets. So this is what local artisans
Thank you.
in Uganda do. I added a little pink touch.
Can I put them on? Can I wear them?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And there are two, just because I would like you to give the second one to a woman that inspires you. Again, to promote the idea of you grow, I grow, you know, women kind of coming together and working together.
Oh, I'm going to put them both on. My mum really inspires me. So she's the most amazingly strong woman. So I'll think about it.
Yeah.
But I may give her one. She would be honoured, I'm sure.
It.
Actually, that's true, yeah. So I'm going to have to now, Mum, won't I? They're beautiful. With
The little pink bead is meant to...
Thank you.
Just remind you to feed your brain with good thoughts, you know, with positive thoughts, because I think we're creatures of habits.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
You know, to get into that habit of positivity. I'm personally really passionate about change, which is why I was really looking forward to speaking to you, and about that complicated muscle of ours called the brain.
Yep.
I recently read a Harvard Business Review on how we process change. So the intake of new information, new arguments, no matter how logical, actually makes us feel like dupes. And it's not just a psychological effect, it has a physiological effect where when we experience negative emotions, the blood recedes from the cerebral cortex to the reptilian stem, the back of our brain.
Is that right?
Yes. So it cripples the intake of new information, basically. So now, if this is what change feels like to most people, I want to ask you, how easy is your job?
Oh, God. For me, in terms of what you mean, in terms of going through different change pieces.
Yeah. I know you're passionate about
that. I'm really passionate about it. I think for me, in my job, what I do is I facilitate and support change. So actually, I find it quite comfortable because it's almost as if it's not happening to me because I'm the one that's coming in to help make the changes happen. I think what's really interesting, and it's a really interesting point that you've just made about what happens with the brain, and because I think a lot of people talk about really enjoying change, really liking change. Change is good, and it's as if they feel they have to say, I really embrace change. I think it's a really positive thing. But actually, most people, if they're really honest, change really scares them. And I think for me, when I'm going through big change programs with organisations or teams, or even when I'm coaching, with individuals who are going through significant challenges, whether it's a change in a role or a new role, or they're not performing in a role, and so they know they've got to do something different. Actually supporting them through that amount of change is what I'm there to do. So I suppose I never really, it's a really good question, because I never really think about how it affects me, because I sort of feel that I'm a facilitator of change for others. Does that make sense? But people are scared by change. So I think, as I say, won't bang on about it, but I think, people that actually say, I love change.
You're a bit doubtful.
I get really doubtful. I think people like challenge. I think sometimes people lose interest or need to do something a bit different. But there's also something called change fatigue, where people go through lots and lots and lots of change. I don't personally feel that I worry too much about change. For me, my job is about helping people manoeuvre change that they're going through, and how I can support them and make them see it as positive as possible.
What should leaders do when they're faced with resistance from people?
Humility is the first word that springs to mind. I think it's understanding that, again, different people will have different experiences, different views, different points of view, different mindsets, and not to be scared of people disagreeing or challenging or having just conflicting points of view. It doesn't... My dog's just gone.
You have a little friend.
My little dog.
Who wants to join.
Bless her. Took me by surprise. So I think being able to be authentic, being able to be yourself, again, as a leader, not being scared if somebody really challenges or somebody says, I really don't agree with what you're doing. I think listen to people, understand what they're saying, understand that people have different points of view, and accept that.
In your practice, how often are those opinions taken into consideration? Do you think that is there an element of collective intelligence where sometimes those opinions could change the agenda slightly, or is it not often that it actually...
Yeah, I think it depends when you and if you engage people in the decisions. I think... Is it okay? She just wants to come and play, I think.
Yeah.
She's very interested. Should we bring her in?
Free to open the door.
Come on.
We're dog friendly here.
This is Scarlett.
Hello, Scarlett.
So I think there are two ways of making decisions and change, if you're talking about making change in an organisation. One is you just sort of go ahead and decide. So a board or a senior team or a management team will say, this is what we're going to do, and we're just going to go ahead and do it. And that has to happen in some cases. You can't consult with everybody all of the time.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are times when it's really important to engage your workforce and ask them what they think, and ask them for their opinions and their ideas. And it doesn't mean that you have to use them. And I think it's important to be really honest with people when you're going down that route and saying, actually, we want to hear what you have to say, but at the end of the day, we're going to take everybody's views and we're going to come up with sort of a collective view.
I've experienced both.
Exactly. And which works for you?
Actually doing it together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about people's DNA. You're talking about people coming to work and having to behave in a certain way, probably being rewarded in a certain way, being trained to follow certain things. And I think if you can just get people engaged in that process and talking and having a view, then you are going to fly. If you try and dictate to people some of the softer aspects around values, culture, behaviours, won't work.
Makes more sense.
Yeah.
Have you always been comfortable with change? Is it that you are open-minded, which you most certainly are, and then, you know, you have been in that environment for the last 20 odd years.
Yeah.
And then, so it's both the exposure and the right mindset that have made you that way. What do you say? What would you say?
I think probably in my early career, I was exactly the sort of person that I've just been talking about, the person who was scared about change.
Oh, okay.
I think I think it's maturity, and I think it's making the decisions, doing the job that I've done, going through, you know, working with organisations, going through significant change, that has enabled me to be a bit more pragmatic about it, because it's a job I do, so that, you know, it's what I'm used to doing. But I would definitely say, when I was, you know, in my 20s, you know, straight out of college, it's helped me to understand and empathise with people, because I've been in that position.
I'm interested because, you know, I have this picture of you, confident, strong, this and that, and I'm like, have you always been that way? Is it, you know, is it this? Because it's sometimes I think it's easy for people to feel like, wow, I'm not like that.
I know.
And forgetting it takes time to get like
Absolutely.
that. You know,
Yeah.
which is
And it
why...
absolutely does take time to get like that. You know, I am actually an incredibly sensitive person. I think we all suffer from imposter syndrome. I definitely suffer from imposter syndrome. I think there is an element of me that plays a part. So I think when I'm facilitating, when I'm consulting, you have to be in control. You have to be in charge.
Yeah.
It's what an organisation is paying you to do.
But
So,
it feels like it's almost natural to you. It's really interesting you say that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a lot more natural now. But oh my goodness, there are lots of situations that I'm in where you're talking to people and they will say to you, Claire, I don't agree with that at all, or that's rubbish, or, you know, you're wrong, you know. And it goes back to the point I was making about listening to people and having some humility. So even if I'm not a leader, if I'm a facilitator and I'm working with a team of people that fundamentally disagree with what I'm saying, because part of my role is to challenge thinking, you've just got to take it.
And my next question, because you're a coach as well,
Sure.
so you work with leaders and help them excel and maximise their potential, their performance. So I'm interested in how do you do that? How do you get the best out of people?
Coaching is not about telling people what to do. Coaching is about getting people to find their own answers to their questions. It's about asking the right questions, having the right conversations, making people think, in some cases continuing to ask the same question time and time again, over and over, until they really get down into the layers of their thinking. And I think that there are a lot of people who say they're coaches and they just tell people what to do. You know, I have a joke with people that always says, you know, coaching is what you need to do is, you know, and it isn't. It's about saying, okay, so how do you feel? What do you want to achieve? How do you think you're going to be able to achieve it? What might stand in your way to you being able to achieve it? What happens if it goes wrong? You know, what's your contingency? And really getting an individual to think around the question that they're asking.
So almost putting them in the right environment to sort of paint their own picture.
You've got to find your own way. That's so, for me, that's so important with coaching. I am there to facilitate. And I use the facilitate word a lot, but I'm really there to make people think for themselves as a coach. I'm not there to tell them what to do, because if I'm coaching you, you will see the world, Angelika, in a completely different way to the way I will. And if we were put in the same situation, we would experience it totally differently because of the way we've been brought up, because of the way our minds work, because of the experiences we've had. So it would be arrogant of me to tell you what to do, because I am not you. Your thought processes are not my thought processes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And there are times when you think, oh, somebody's going completely down the wrong route. You know, actually, it's going to be a disaster. But they have to find that out themselves. You know, you can only challenge their thinking.
I guess that's how we learn best, really.
Absolutely. Make a mistake.
What, in your experience, this is a slightly different question.
Sure.
What stops women from achieving and from going for those hardcore leadership roles? Is there a common denominator that you've noticed? Because often they stop at those
I
sorts
know,
of middle
yeah.
management
I know. And there's
positions.
and I think that's changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely starting to change. I mean, the work that you do. I mean, you see a lot of very strong, very successful women in the work you do.
But it's still not as it's still not equal.
It's still not equal, and it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
But it's better than it was. I think there are a number of things which probably won't surprise anybody. I think women are the ones that have the babies that, with their maternal instinct, still typically will be the ones that take the maternity leave, rather than the partners, staying at home and letting them get back to work and go. So I think that career gap when you're having children is always going to be a challenge. I think there's a confidence piece with a lot of women because, as you say, we're still not quite there yet. We're still, I still, back to imposter syndrome, I still think more women suffer from imposter syndrome than men. I think. I think there is still in society a view that men are going to be more successful, and there are more men that forge a way ahead. They have more confidence to challenge. I'm not saying it's right at all, but I think men have more confidence, or more of a stronger attitude, or an arrogance maybe, that says, actually I need to move up that career ladder. Maybe it's a social piece about being the hunter-gatherer. I think there are more pressures put on women to do other things than just focus on a career.
Okay.
So you will get a lot of very senior men in organisations, especially big organisations, because they have the support infrastructure behind them of their wives and their family. And that is still the majority of the way around that it is.
But then there are also women like yourself who inspire others.
Absolutely.
Like myself.
Oh, thank you. That is, wow, I'm honoured. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Yeah, but then I've had a very different life as well. So at a personal level, I didn't get married at 20. I haven't had children. I've had the most amazing career and made the most amazing decisions, and have had, I have a wonderful husband now, wonderful husband. We've been together for 15 years, and he is the most supportive person in the world to me, and had a big career himself. So he knows exactly what it's like. But circumstance and my career was incredibly important to me, and I worked, and still is, and I worked very, very hard and focused on it above anything else, if I'm really honest, because I really had a desire to do really well.
And you went for it.
And I went for it, and I probably made some personal sacrifices as a result of that. Travelled the world, have had some fantastic jobs, worked for some amazing organisations, but possibly have not had the life that other women might have wanted to have. But that's been my choice.
But that's everyone's choice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there is nothing to say that you can't, have that wonderful, relationship and a family and still be really fantastic at what you do as a woman. I just think that we're still fighting that corner.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. It was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for talking to us.
And to talk to you too. Real honour. Thank you.